Hey guys, it's Stacia.
Hey, it's Jordan.
Let's get completely checked out. Jordan and I are apparently in sync because we both chose religious texts. Neither of them are going to be holy in any capacity, but the theme today is religion. So if you're really religious and really into it, one, why are
Beware.
you here? No, it's like, one, why are you here? Nothing we do is good for your religion, probably. However, yeah, it's gonna be a doozy on both ends. But it's nice to be back in front of the mic.
Yeah.
And we had some stuff going on, but I think you get to go
Yes.
first this week. I'm
Yay. And
actually excited about it.
yeah, I am also excited about it because this targets the band I really like, but only like vibes, not the cult related messaging that is going to go down in this book. So I did wear my
Oh yeah.
sleep token little
Speaking of
sweater.
cults,
Yeah. So the band in this book, the book's called Satan's Priest by Willow McQuerry. And the band in this book, they are masked. So that's why it's very Sleep Token-esque. Like obviously, I've seen a lot of Sleep Token fan edits on my For You page, of course.
that makes
And
sense.
a lot of people comment underneath, like, I need to read a book about them, like, or a book based around this
Mm-hmm.
type of vibe, whatever. And this was one that was recommended. So I read it, and it is crazy. So there are a
Really
lot
quick,
of trigger warnings.
if you don't know Jordan in real life, Jordan is a part of a cult and it is called Sleep Token. I think that's the one that was like the first thing I learned about you is like Jordan is tall with darker hair and she also loves Sleep Token more than anything in her life.
Oh my God, their music's just so good. And all their
I get it.
concerts sold out. So Tyler and I are debating on if we should just buy resale tickets, but also their only Florida tour is in Orlando and on a Wednesday. And
If only you had somebody you knew in Orlando who you could spend the night at their
but we're not
house.
taking off PTO for the concert. If
I mean, you could
anything,
work
we'd
in my
go.
house. Yeah.
Well, he can't.
That's true. I forgot
Yeah.
he doesn't work remote. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, it's
Well, if
okay.
you decide against it, I have plenty of room. My parents have plenty of room. Let us know.
Yeah. We're still mulling it over. We'll see. But yeah, so let's dive into this because I might have a lot of notes, but it's because a lot of stuff, it gets really crazy. Okay. So overall rating for me, I gave it a 4. I would have given it a 4.5, but just like some of the things I was like, it just bothered me, but I digress. Goodreads gave it a 4.13, Storygraph gave it a 3.88, and then Fable gave it a 4. So a lot of people do like this book, which is
Yeah,
great.
some high ratings.
Yeah. There are a lot of trigger warnings. This book was inspired by Jennifer's Body. So if you didn't like or enjoy the
Ooh.
movie Jennifer's Body, you probably won't like this. Obviously, there's a lot of Catholicism and God, and also mocking God, Catholicism, Christianity. There's demons, devils, schizophrenia, panic attacks, paranoia, murder. There's sexual assault, like child sexual assault from the girl's 18. And it was, yeah. So I'm not going to get to what happened because she does list it, but I'm not going to list it right now because I don't want to give anything away. But she does get sexually assaulted.
Ooh.
And it does happen a couple times. But this is like also there, it's also incest. So
Oh, that's not
sexual
good.
assault is incest. I should keep that in mind. But yeah, so let's dive in. If you didn't like those, sorry. Okay. So Satan's Priest is a band, and we are in the POV of Grace, and she just turned 18. She's going to see Satan's Priest with her friend Layla. They just turned 18, and this is like what they're doing for her birthday, basically. And she is dating this guy, Sebastian, and Sebastian hates Layla. And Layla hates Sebastian as well. So they all three of them go to a Catholic high school. And Grace isn't really a good Catholic. She's already had sex with Sebastian. So she like confides in Layla, and I think Layla is also not a good Catholic because she's also already had sex. But basically, Grace is like, oh, I wish Sebastian would do more. All we do is missionary, and he won't like do any of the things I'd like to do. He's basically super vanilla. So
what a tragedy.
Layla's like, fucking dump that douchebag. There's guys out here that'll bang you the way you want.
What a friend.
And Grace is like, no, because I love him. Anyway, so it's Halloween weekend and they're going to the concert. They dressed up, obviously, in like cute little outfits. And they're not allowed to celebrate Halloween stuff because that's celebrating the devil. And another warning that Sebastian gives Layla and Grace is be careful because there's been a lot of kidnappings and a lot of murders that's been happening recently. So Layla and Grace go to the Satan's Priest concert. They have VIP passes to meet the band because, again, this is what they're doing for her birthday. Yeah, Grace wants to spice up her sex life with Sebastian, but he wants to keep things vanilla because he doesn't want to trigger her trauma. And she's like, yeah, but I trust you, so it wouldn't be triggering type of thing. But she just like stops. They go, he leaves them because that was happening at school. Then they go to the concert, right? The concert's awesome. They're living it up. They're singing all the lyrics. And the lead singer can't stop staring at her. Okay? And then we get into the POV of Lucian. And he is the main singer of the band. Okay?
I'm sorry, but of course his name is Lucian.
And that's what Tyler said to me. He's like, of course his
really?
name is Lucian. Yes. And the other
Tyler,
demon,
one mind.
Yeah, the other demon that will get his POV, his name's Damon. And this is what I'm saying. Like, I didn't give it a 4.5 because some of these things I was just like, okay.
Lucian and Damon, like Lucifer and Demon? Like
he's not Lucifer though.
I know, but it's a play off the name.
I know.
We could be a little more creative.
Yeah, sorry. No, I 100% agree. Okay. So we get POV Lucian, and we find out he is a incubus demon that serves Satan. Okay. They kidnap the two girls because they end up going backstage. They talk, they chat. She talks to Damon. Layla is talking to Damon. And then I think Layla talks to Lucian, but Lucian can't stop looking at her. It's very interesting. But they kidnap them because he has to sacrifice virgins to Satan. Okay. So they're doing a ritual, talking in Latin, and it involves blood. So Lucian stabs her and sacrifices her to Satan. Okay. But Grace wakes back up. Okay.
Well, yeah.
So she's dead. She wakes up in hell next to Layla. Layla isn't moving or anything. So she's like, what the fuck? She notices she still has her wounds and that she can't talk because Lucian slit her throat. So she's in hell, whatever. She's super hungry. And she notices that her teeth feel really pointed and sharp. And she goes over to Layla's body and starts eating Layla's body. And like takes out her heart and eats the heart. But because she was eating Layla's body, her wounds started healing. So she was like, yeah, of course. So she freaks out and starts running because she can't believe what she's done to Layla. And she has no clue where she is, but she's determined to find Lucian and make him pay, of course. Okay. We're back in Lucian's POV. and he got summoned by Satan. And he's
Yes.
pissed because Grace wasn't a virgin. And
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. And
Sorry.
Lucian was supposed to give him 2. So I was wrong at the beginning. Layla is still a virgin. I think she did everything.
But yeah.
Sex. Yeah.
That's Catholicism for you. They're like, as
Yeah.
long as it doesn't enter where it usually goes, everything
Right.
else is fine.
Yeah. And I think that's what was the vibe.
Well, that's how I was like, what's Lucian's vetting process with these women?
He
Like,
just assumed. So
Oh, he just assumed.
because
Assumed makes an ass out of you and me, Lucian.
yeah,
so,
because they were younger. I'm pretty sure she had said, "Oh, we're here for my 18th birthday." I
it's
think
the 21st century, Lucian.
Yeah, I think like she wore a cross on her neck or something, but he's not the one that picks. Lucifer or Satan is the one that tells Lucian, that's who I want.
Okay, because I was like, you can't trust a girl who wears a cross around her neck.
Yeah,
like I'm Exhibit A. So
right. So it was
I got a
actually
cross on my
Lucifer that
back,
told
so.
Lucian, hey, I want these
so
two
Lucifer
girls.
fucked up. Got it.
Right, correct.
Heard.
And when he got summoned and Lucifer or Satan was like pissed because Grace wasn't a virgin, Satan tells Lucian that he better find Grace because she made it back into the mortal realm. So she ran so far out of hell that she ended up back into the mortal realm through that church that they had Oh, I didn't say they sacrificed her at a church. I forgot to say that.
Yeah. Okay? Where else would you sacrifice someone?
Right. She made it back into the church somehow and back into the mortal realm.
Sure.
Right. Naturally. So we're back in POV Grace, and she heads back to her house because she still lives with her parents. Everyone in their house is sleeping. She has a younger sister. She does not like her younger sister, whatever. She starts freaking out. What if they called the police? I preferred to keep quiet about my murder and subsequent resurrection. I also didn't want to tell them I had eaten my best friend's corpse. I flipped the light on and jumped at my reflection in the mirror. I looked like shit. No, worse than that. I looked like roadkill that had been run over by hundreds of cars until it was nothing but splattered muscle and blood. Disgusting. No wonder my appearance had agitated the dog and Slinky, her cat. When she was running back to her house, there was like a neighborhood dog that was barking at her. Dark circles hung beneath my eyes, and the ashen pallor of my skin made it look like the color had been leached out of me. All right. Disgusting. So she showers and she wants to kill Lucian, but is also distraught because she ate her friend. And she's like, I don't know if I can kill anyone else. But then she hears a voice in her head. And the voice in her head, it's a female voice, and it says, then fuck him. Because it's
literally like an angel and the devil on your shoulder.
Yeah. And she did find Lucian very attractive. So she was already interested in him.
Yeah, his name is Lucian.
And he's a lead singer of a band, and you don't know what his face looks like. So, of course, you're just going to assume he's hot. But anyway.
I forgot about the masks.
They're hot, of course. Just keep that in mind.
Of course.
You end up seeing their faces.
But there's always the chance that they weren't. Continue.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure they removed their masks once he like stabbed her in the heart or whatever. Yeah. So she did see his face. But anyway. Casual. She enters her bedroom and mentions how everything everything is as she left it, and her schizophrenia medication is on her dresser. Because she thinks the voice in her head is because she hasn't taken her schizophrenia medication. And she doesn't know how long she's been missing. She doesn't know how long it took her to be dead and then resurrected. So, yeah. We're back in POV. Oh, she tries to go to sleep. She doesn't take her meds. Keep that in mind.
Take your meds, bitch.
So we're back to POV Lucian, and he's looking at the murder tables. And he's like, I wondered if it was Grace's doing. If she managed to come back to life, then she certainly wasn't human anymore. Lucifer disclosed very little aside from his suspicion that she'd returned to the mortal realm. So Lucian is thinking she's some sort of demon. And she can't be running loose if she is a demon because she came back to life. So
Yeah, we
He's
can't have that.
now, him and Damon are now going to be looking for Grace and trying to find her. So we're back in POV Grace, and her mom is sobbing. Her dad's pissed off. And they had called Layla's parents when they went missing. And we really still don't know how much time has passed. But her mom had asked her where they had been. And she said, we got distracted. And that they took a little trip because it was Halloween weekend. And her dad is fuming at this point because obviously they're super religious. And that's
Yeah.
when we find out they've been gone the entire weekend. So they've been gone missing for 3 days. No phone
Oh.
call, no text, no nothing.
Oh yeah, I'd be pissed too.
So she gets grounded and she's like, I'm not a kid anymore. And her mom's like, Grace, you are to obey your mother and father. What would Jesus think if he saw you talking back to us?
WWJD.
And the
What would
dad
Jesus do?
says, yeah, and the dad says, and you live under my roof, you eat my food, drink my water, and use my money to buy yourself things. If you're going to live here, you will do as I say. You're not allowed to go out, no seeing your boyfriend, who I think you're getting too close to.
Remind me, Jordan, did you grow up religious?
No.
Okay, this is just really funny. This is all just really funny to me, and I didn't know if you could relate or not. Continue. I'm so sorry. I grew up very religious,
Oh,
so
okay.
that's why some of this I'm like, continue. My bad.
Yeah, no, it keeps being like this, okay?
Okay, it's
Yeah.
just funny.
So we're in POV Damon, and he was assigned to look for Grace because Lucian really doesn't want anything to do with her. He finds her, finds the house, and she is getting undressed. And of course, in front of a window that is not pulled the blinds for privacy.
And they did explicitly mention that she is 18, correct?
Yep, that is explicitly said.
Okay, cool. Continue.
Yeah.
Just making sure.
Yeah, so he's watching her. He takes a couple photos of her. And then he notices that there's movement on the first floor. And he sees her parents banging in the living room, no curtains drawn again. And Damon is like, what the fuck is going on? These Catholic people are crazy.
Catholic people are crazy.
Yeah. So we switched to Lucian, and he was doing a bunch of like research of Grace. Find out her full name is Grace Davis. She recently turned 18. She lives with her parents, Robert and Margaret Davis, and she attends Sacred Heart Catholic School and planned on graduating this semester.
It's always Sacred Heart.
So he says, my face twisted as I realized a teenage girl had given me the hardest erection I'd ever experienced. Okay?
Oh my gosh.
Damon said, I know. We're fucking perverts.
Oh god.
Yeah. And he got the erection because Damon's showing him the pictures that he took, of course. And she's a thick girly. So keep that in mind.
Love that.
Thick with boobs. Big boobs and a big butt, I'm pretty sure. So keep that in mind. Lucian tells Damon to watch her, make sure she doesn't act out in any weird way. She obviously wasn't human, but this has never happened before, so he just needs to monitor her and make sure if he has to intervene, he can. So now the theory is that she was never human to begin with.
Oh, interesting.
Yep. So we're in POV Grace, and the voice in her head keeps chanting dick because she's hungry, and the hunger's super painful, and her need to get plowed is only getting worse. Okay.
I get it.
So
Sorry.
she runs into Sebastian and she wants to fuck him bad. Okay. He's like, we should go back to your house tonight. Even though I'm grounded, I'll sneak out. We'll meet at midnight. And he's like, okay. she does that. They start banging, and she gets rough with him because he's going soft and slow and only doing missionary. But this is where, like, she rapes him because she ripped the condom off of him, puts him on his back, and is on top of him having sex with him. And there's like this string that's connecting both of them together that she like yanks on in her mind. And basically, what that does is makes him keep coming inside her. And she's like taking all of his energy out from him as well. So he's like
What the
shriveling.
fuck is this?
Yeah, he's shriveling up into like a husk of a human. Like a prune, she compares him to. And she immediately calls
Okay.
911 because he's dying. And when he gets taken away by the ambulance, that's when she notices Damon. But she doesn't really realize it's Damon because he's not wearing his mask. And we switch over to POV Damon, and he tells us what the fuck is going on. Okay? Because you're like, what do you mean you're making him do all that multiple times in a row and he's shriveling up into a raisin? She is a goddamn succubus. There was no way she wasn't. I wasn't sure how she became one, as they were only created by demons mating. From what I gathered about her family, they were as human as they could get. What demon could worship God? I didn't know one. They have to get her an incubus, okay? So she doesn't accidentally kill someone. But Lucian and Damon, they are both incubus. But neither of them want to have sex with her because she's 18. And they've
Makes
been
sense.
yeah, they've been alive for a very long time, but neither of them want to like have some random incubus fuck her either. So,
Yeah, makes sense.
yeah. So, Damon is like, I'll do what needs to be done because she will kill someone and she won't ever be able to get herself under control. So, we're back into POV Grace. Father Thomas calls her into his office to talk about something. She thinks it's about having sex with Sebastian because obviously Sebastian's parents were awoken by the ambulance and he was taken away to the hospital. But it's actually about Kayla being dead. Okay? Nothing too crazy, but that conversation, she just kind of like plays dumb. But
Okay.
she is indeed sneaking out to a frat party at a local college
All right.
because the voice in her head is telling her to feed. So she's going to not have sex with a random guy, but she is going to find a random guy to do sexual things with. Okay. So we switch into Lucian, and he is actually keeping an eye on Grace by being at the frat party. And Damon and him agreed to like alternate shifts, basically. So it's his shift right now. He does comment on how hot she looks, but feels instantly guilty because she's 18. Lucian had summoned Damon to come join him at the frat house because it's packed. He needs more than just his set of eyeballs. So we're back in POV Grace, and she actually pulled a random guy at the party and immediately gets to the point of their interaction and is sex. Okay. They head upstairs to an empty bedroom. She blows him. And we basically have a repeat of Sebastian where she just yanks on that cord.
Oh,
And
jeez.
yeah. So she couldn't stop the demon inside her. And finally, she gets a hold of herself and is like, holy shit, pushes him off or pushes like away from the guy. And she rushes out of the house and she stumbles right into Lucian. And Lucian, she's like, what the fuck are you doing here? And he instantly takes her to the house of God. And he tells her, I have no idea how you are alive. And then she's like, then tell me what's going on with me. And he asked her, "Did you kill him?" And she's like, "What?" And he said, "The man you fed from at the party." And she stays silent. She doesn't really say much. And she's like, "I didn't kill him. It wasn't me. It was the demon." So he tells her about what a succubus is and how humans can't handle like a new succubus that can't control herself, whatever. And he says, "You won't keep feeding little sinner." That's his nickname for her. "Not from them." And she's like, "Okay, then from who? You?" And she rolls her eyes at him.
Oh my gosh.
And he like grabs her chin and makes her look at him. And he's like, "Don't flatter yourself.
Ooh.
I like my women with more personality."
Ooh.
And then he says, "And I don't want spoiled goods."
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So he says you'll feed from Damon and he'll teach you demon etiquette. The more you learn and act appropriately, the less you'll see of me. And she's like, "Good." Okay. But she is upset because she doesn't want to fuck Damon. She just wants to fuck Sebastian, her boyfriend, of course. He is still in the hospital, by the way. But anyway, her demon took over, and the demon expresses to him that the demon would like to fuck him. And he just kind of like walks away and is like, "Damon will take care of you in the morning," basically. So she wakes up. Damon is at her door looking at her, and he looks fine as hell, okay? And he tells her, "I have a ward around your room so others can't hear us talking, so like don't worry about it." But then he's also like, "Or fucking." "You're a new succubus who's been feeding from human men, but you need an incubus to give you what you need." And she's like, "I can't fuck you because of my boyfriend." And we switch over to POV Damien, and he's like sexually frustrated at the moment and fantasizing about fucking her. Okay. He does leave once she denies him, and she's like, "Okay, fine, whatever." But anyway, most demons aren't out to get your soul. An incubus, oh, he's explaining the incubus relationship, okay? An incubus demon is a male who preys on women, pushing his essence into her so he can derive comfort. A succubus demon is a female who preys on men and sucks their energy out of them. Sometimes incubus and succubus demons use each other because they can get what they want without killing the other. However, when it comes to humans, you have to be careful because you could kill them. And she's like, "Fuck me, I don't want to," obviously. Yeah. So we're back in POV Grace, and she's asking for her phone back, and her dad said no. And we find out that her dad went through her phone and saw all of the inappropriate photos she was taking and sending to Sebastian. And her dad said, "When you get home from school, you will be punished. You better hope that you're still a virgin." And Grace was like, "I am a virgin." Obviously, she was lying.
Well,
and
yeah.
she ends up having to walk to school. Okay. So when she gets to school, she's looking for Sebastian, but he still hasn't recovered yet. She goes to her locker, and this guy, Brad, cages her in, and he's like, I saw you take a guy up into a bedroom at the party a couple nights ago. Alex said it was the best head of his life. I didn't take you for a slut. What would Sebastian think if he knew his girlfriend got on her knees for someone else?"
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. So we're back in POV Lucian because now he has become a father at the Sacred Heart School. Okay?
Oh, God.
Because this is where he gets to like keep an eye on her. Okay? So he essentially becomes a teacher. Okay? Wearing his little priest outfit or whatever the fuck.
Oh, God.
But he gets up like when he's walking around, it's confessional time, so all the students are like lining up to confess their sins and be forgiven. But a girl is saying that Father Thomas hasn't showed up for confessional, so they're just kind of like waiting around. And basically he went to go find Father Thomas, saw that Father Thomas was indeed balls deep in a nun, as he put it.
Oh, God.
Okay, so because of this, he goes into the confessional booth and he's the one doing the confession. So we get Grace, and she's confessing that she gave that random guy a blowjob and that she thinks of sex all the time. She's asking if God is testing her, and obviously Lucian is a demon, so he doesn't like God, but he tries to pretend to be a father, and it's really funny. And he's like, if he was testing us, what would make him a cruel god? Or that would make him a cruel god, don't you think? And she says, but the Bible, and then he interrupts, was written by a bunch of men 100 years after Jesus died. The true words of the Son of God and the Creator were warped time after time. Humans continued to change it to fit their narrative, to bend the wills of clueless believers like you.
Lucian is preaching straight up facts.
So she obviously runs away because she realizes it's Lucian. And he follows her, calls out today her, and he's like, you haven't fed yet. I can see it. Okay? Because she looks like shit. She always looks like shit when she hasn't fed. Okay? But she's upset because she doesn't want to fuck Damon. She wants to have sex with Sebastian. That's obviously not going to happen. So she's frustrated with Lucian and she just walks away from him. And she's whatever. She tries to sneak into her house after school. Her dad hears her go upstairs and calls her back down and orders her to lift her skirt so she can check if she's still a virgin.
No, it's a hard no for me, dog. Thanks, though.
This is where
Thanks for
that
asking.
sexual assault incest comes in.
Hate this.
And this is my actual words of how I wrote this when I was like reading it. Literally cannot even tell you what he did to her. All I'm going to say is that she did bleed. This was the hardest thing to read. Like, I literally skimmed the words because I physically could not read it. It was so disgusting.
Oh, that would make me vomit.
Yeah.
That would make you sure.
It was the worst thing I've read. Okay.
Nope. It's good.
So, thank God she bled. Turns out it was her period. Okay. She goes up to her room. She's screaming, crying into her pillow. He still has the ward around her room, so like no one can hear her. And the demon voice inside her head said to her, he will pay for what he has done.
Good.
Yeah. So we switch into POV Damon, and he's checking up on her, and he notices that she like fell asleep crying because she has like tear streaks down her face, and she's still wearing her school clothes. He pulled back the cover and saw them, but he also saw the blood stain on the sheet. At this point, we didn't know it was her period, so but we found out later it was her period. She was having some sort of nightmare. When Damon put the blanket back on her and faced her again, her eyes were open, but all black. And that's because the demon was awake and taking control of her body as she slept. And he asked her demon what happened, and the demon said it was a secret. Then he asked the demon, why did you come back to life and become a succubus? And the demon said, that's for me to know and for you to never find out. So she's a little sassy too.
Yeah.
We switch over to Lucian, and he's teaching a class that Grace is a part of, and they talk about demons. He explains that Lucifer didn't like how God treated his creations. The analogy he said was that humans are ants on a hill, and God had a magnifying glass and would set them on fire. Then he goes on to explain that Lucifer and all the other fallen angels believed that humans were equal to God, and because God is all-knowing, he set Eve up for failure in the Garden of Eden. God knew that the snake would lure Eve to eat the forbidden fruit. When you eat the forbidden fruit, you become equal to God, and God did not like that. So very interesting. And he can tell that a lot of the kids are like, whoa.
Yeah.
Just, like, broke my mind just then.
Do you know the whole story of Adam and Eve?
Yeah. Enough.
I'm only asking because I'm curious. I've talked to somebody else recently who also did not grow up religious, and it, like I mentioned, like John 3:16, and they had no idea what the fuck I was talking about. But like that's common knowledge, and so I was just curious if you knew the story, like the whole story.
Well, say John 3:16 then.
For God so loved the world that he gave his only one and begotten Son, and those who believe in him shall not perish but have eternal life. Yeah, unfortunately, I can still spit verses. Anyway, but I was just curious. It wasn't like a dig on you. I was just curious if you. I was curious if people who didn't grow up religious like knew the story.
Well, do you want to tell the story? Like
I,
a summarized version if someone doesn't know?
yeah, like God made Adam as a reflection of himself and how he looked, which is why so many people think God is a man. And Adam got lonely because he was a man. He didn't know what to do with himself. And so God took, Adam was also made from like dirt, which is why people believe Adam was black. But then God took one of Adam's ribs and made Eve, which is why they think Eve was white. And he was like, you could do whatever you want, just like don't go into the garden of wisdom or knowledge or whatever the fuck it was and eat from the tree of knowledge or wisdom or whatever the fuck it was. And then obviously Eve tiptoes in. There's the snake. And the snake is Satan, and he's like, eat it. Just do it. Like, why wouldn't you? It looks so good. And then she does. And then God's like, get the fuck out. And that's how we were cast down. And that is why apparently men are supposed to be like work very labor heavy jobs. And since Eve was the one who ate the fruit, that is why women have to go through the pain of birth and have periods. Ta da! Religion. Anyway, continue.
Great job.
Thanks, I try.
All right. So he approaches Grace after class or during lunch or something. I can't remember. It doesn't matter. And he's like, if you truly think your demon will allow you to starve yourself any longer, then you don't have two brain cells to rub together. And she says to him, get fucked, and tries to walk out of the room. And he says, if anyone needs to get fucked, it's you, little sinner. If you don't feed soon, it will be me. It will be me balls deep while you're chained to my bed. Okay.
Is that a promise?
She flipped him off before she disappeared around the corner. Okay. And we're back at POV Grace. And she's trying to stave off her hunger by just like orgasming herself alone. And Damon says that's not going to work. You need to feed off of someone's energy in order to feed yourself. You can't self-indulge. So she's like pissed about that. And he won't like force her to have sex with him because obviously he feels super guilty that she's 18. And she's kind of upset by that. She's like, I thought demons were supposed to like force themselves on you. And that's when we learn that she has this like rape kink. Okay. She's into consensual non-consent. Okay. Which that's a really big theme in a lot of dark romance books.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I think it's like the next day or next couple of days, doesn't matter. Sebastian's finally back in school. He wants absolutely nothing to do with her. She's begging him, please. And he's like, no. And then she's like, well, will you meet me at the bleachers so I can explain? And he's like, okay, fine. Meet at lunch. She goes balls to the walls, explaining everything, saying that she was sacrificed. She woke up. She doesn't know like what happened and like whatever. And he just gives her the finger, walks away, and says, you're fucking crazy. Because she also did tell him that she has a demon possessing her. So she goes home, goes to sleep, whatever. We're in POV Damon. Incubus demons can go into dreams, okay? So he goes into her dream and fucks her to feed her that way.
Okay.
And he turns himself into Sebastian. So she thinks that it's Sebastian, but he takes control, puts her on her hands and knees, and is having sex with her from behind. And she sees like the shadow of him cast on the wall. And she's like, that's not Sebastian, because there's like horns growing out of the head.
Yeah, that's definitely not Sebastian.
So she's like, I don't know who that is, but I'm into that. So we get all of that POV from Grace, which is very interesting. The next day, Lucian is on confessional duty again because Father Thomas is again having sex with a nun. This is when Grace confesses that she had a sex dream. And she liked it, of course. But she felt guilty for liking it. Lucian pulls her aside. You're going to keep feeding from Damon, whether you like it or not. And she needs to learn how to control herself. And he didn't want to be the one to teach her. And he was so busy trying to search for a new sacrifice and finding out who told her and who told him to pick her in the first place. So he's still having like a hard time figuring that out because he thinks it was someone pretending to be Satan in his head.
Oh.
And that is a way bigger problem than he thinks because, or sorry, it's a bigger problem because if someone else can get into his head and impersonate Satan, that's a way bigger problem. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're in POV Grace. She's having a schizophrenic episode. And Damon comes to visit her and he's very concerned about how she's acting and is like, hey, is everything okay? Like, I can help you, whatever. She finally tells him that she's having a schizophrenic episode and she hasn't been able to take her medication because when she takes it, she just throws it up because she hasn't fed. And she can only eat real food, drink water, or like take her medication if she's fully satiated. Okay.
Okay.
And he was like, have you ever taken medication after feeding? Whether it was from Sebastian, the guy at the party, or from her sex dream. And she's like, no, I haven't. So they test that theory. Basically, they bang. Okay.
Okay.
She obviously is like still upset. He tries to comfort her. She's like, you suck at comforting. Whatever. She takes her meds, isn't sick from them. He tells her, you need to make a decision. Do you want to feed every day so you can take your meds and avoid the schizophrenic symptoms, or do you want to starve yourself and deal with those symptoms? He leaves her alone after telling her he is sending a car for her at 8 p.m. and to wear something sexy.
Oh, nice.
They end up the car is taking her to the Satan's Priest concert. And she got upset because she thinks that Damon wants to remind her about how they killed her and Layla, which is not the case. They just want to make sure that she's safe. And she storms out of the building and is walking. And she's not wearing anything like super sexy because obviously she's Catholic and doesn't own sexy clothes.
Yeah.
But she's walking and this guy in a car pulls up next to her and is like, oh, do you need a ride? Whatever. And she's like, no, I don't. Whatever, blah, blah. He won't take no for an answer. She warns him to leave her alone or she'll rip his tongue out and shove it down his throat. He gets out of the car for some reason and is seething mad that she won't get in it. Disgusting.
Oh.
Leave her alone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay?
Please.
She lunges at him, basically starts choking him out until Damon and Lucian find her. Lucian says, I do hate cleaning up your messes. The demon, like her demon, has fully taken over her body at this point.
Oh, God.
Damon is instructed to bring her back to her house and wait until Grace comes back because right now her demon is in control and is like actively attacking Damon as well.
Oh,
okay?
That's nice.
And she can't push to the surface, so she just like blacks out. So we're POV Lucian. He kills that guy that was trying to get into Grace's car. He gets the guy to admit that he wanted to fuck her and then let his friends fuck her and basically just abuse her. Like he was going to bring her back to his place. Okay.
Okay.
And then when the guy realized he was going to die, he kept saying, oh my God, I have kids. Please don't do this. And it's like, you're a disgusting human being.
You're literally disgusting. I don't feel bad for you.
Yeah, Lucian kills him. And he takes a nice, sweet time doing that. Grace actually doesn't wake up in her bed. She wakes up in Lucian's house in a random bed. And we know it's his house because there's a bunch of Satanist images that are similar to the images that were in the church he had sacrificed her in. She hears Damon and Lucian talking and she begs them to bring her home. She worries her dad is going to find out and kill her. And she's also worried that they will find out the secret that she's holding about her dad, what her dad did to her. Okay.
Oh.
Damon brings her back to her room. He does indeed kiss her and he's like trying to comfort her and tells her she can keep her secret, but he will find out what it is because he's like trying to figure out what's going on with her.
Yeah.
So we're in like the next couple of days, whatever. She's in gym class playing soccer. She's getting bullied, bitch. Like These kids are fucking
Oh,
ruthless going after her because, of course,
yeah.
Sebastian told everyone what she had said. That she was basically
Mm-hmm.
crazy for saying a demon was possessing her. And a couple of guys and girls kick her down, kick her in her
Oh,
stomach. Her face gets rubbed into the dirt. She gets called a whore and that God won't forgive her and whatever.
oh.
And her demon comes out, and that's when Lucian kind of saves her in that essence. And he kind of like tries to figure out what was going on. And one of the girls confesses that everyone has deemed her the school slut. So,
Oh, poor girl.
yeah, very upset. Back in POV, Grace and her dad assaults her again in the parking lot of the school. He assaulted her
Someone
because
come for this man.
I know he assaulted her because he said she could have her phone back under one condition: don't tell anyone what I've done. And he was talking about the assault, this assault,
Yeah.
not the first one. And then she like runs out of the car once she gets the phone and she leaves. Basically, what her dad had done, he told her to lift up her skirt. He took out his penis and starts doing that and
No.
is touching her at the same
Yep.
time. Yeah,
Hate that.
horrible, disgusting. I feel like I'm
Absolutely
gonna throw up
disgusting.
right now.
Yep, that is not
Um,
good.
she runs out of the car. Lucian notices it, knows something's up. She keeps blaming her mental illness. He's like, I don't think that's it. We get into his POV briefly, and he thinks that Grace is too good for him and that Damon is a better fit for Grace to be bonded to. So we're like,
Oh.
oh, you do care about her. Very interesting. That same day, she's having a schizophrenic episode. During lunch, she's running away, trying to escape, and just is bawling her eyes out. She doesn't know where she's running, but she ends up at Lucian's office. And this is where we find out he is fucking another student.
Oh God.
And it's Samantha. And Samantha is the girl that confessed that she is the school slut. And also she's
Interesting.
really interested in him, Samantha. So she was like wanting to have sex with him. She catches him doing that. He notices her, looks at her, and is just looking at her the entire time after like he's finishing. And she runs away, running home in the rain because she's like, holy shit, I wish it was me, not that bitch.
Yeah.
But she feels the bond between her and Damon and runs towards him and begs him to fuck her. So he does. Yep. Later that night, he stayed and cuddled for a little bit, but he put his phone number and Lucian's number in her phone, left her a note that said, because they went back to his place, left her a note that said, I wanted to drop you off at your home so you can wake up in your bed and like feel safe or whatever. Which is so
Mm-hmm.
cute. Thank you so much. Anyway, Grace is minding her own business in her room, and her door is open, and her sister's in the doorway, accusing her of never eating, never leaving her room, and is chewing very loudly. And that's one of her schizophrenic triggers, is chewing really loud. And it's causing her symptom to go off. And she tries to get Christy to leave, but she doesn't. Her demon comes out a little bit, and that's when Christy drops her bag of chips and is running down the stairs to tell her mom. Tells the mom. Grace is having a full-blown episode at this point. She asks her mom if she can go for a walk. The mom agrees. As she's going towards the door, she hears her dad's footsteps from the office and just starts
Oh.
running because she's nervous, and she's calling out for Damon in her head. He comes, saves her. Thank God. Who would have known what he would do? Brings her back to his place. He just like is holding her for a really long time because she's bawling her eyes out. He's asking her what's wrong. She won't tell him. She starts spiraling and just says, please don't leave me. They're coming for me. Okay. So she's getting really bad paranoia. He did a lot of research about her illness to figure out what's the
No.
best way to comfort her, which is also really sweet. And what he ends up
Yes.
doing is bringing her into the shower and turning on the water to be like burning hot to shock her out of her episode, which ends up working.
Yeah.
And then he's getting clean clothes for her, and he uses his mind connection with Lucian to let him know what happened and that he needs to come home because something happened. So Grace decides to let Damon into her mind because she won't tell them what's going on. She thinks that if she tells them what happened, they'll both leave her and think less of her, which is really sad. Damon doesn't find out about the assault, but he does see a lot of blank spaces for memories. And he assumes that her demon, she's trying to like protect her. So it's dissociating memories, okay?
Yeah.
So he did find the memory of her telling Sebastian everything and him not believing her and the whole school finding out whatever. So he fills Lucian in on that. And we get POV of Lucian again, where he still hasn't figured out who pretended to be Lucifer. But as of right now, he's just really focused on what she's hiding. So
Yeah.
Damien brings her back to her house. She starts dreaming, but it wasn't a dream. It was her demon taking over. And the demon leaves her house or takes Grace's body to leave her house, finds Samantha, and tries to kill Samantha for having sex with Lucian. Okay.
Okay.
Yep. Damon
Casual.
found her in the parking lot and she was strangling Samantha, trying to kill her. He started to fight Grace in order to get her demon to stop, but that demon was putting up a fight. Okay. So Lucian's the one that actually came and saved the day. He brought her back to his place. She wakes up they bring her back to the church, and her demon defended his honor by killing Samantha. Or that's what she's attempting to kill Samantha because it's unclear if she's dead or not. And her demon's like declaring her claim on Lucian in this way. And he asked her demon, "Will you do the same?" And she said, "Fuck you, LOL." Because Grace came
Jeez.
back to life, okay?
Yeah.
So now they're fighting. The demon takes back her body and they are fighting. She says, "Your mind, I don't care what the human says. I want you, so I get you." And he says, "Then you have me already," basically. And then they have sex, and that creates a bond between them, similar to the bond Grace has with Damon. She still won't tell them what she's hiding and whatever. Okay. Grace's sister is convinced she's possessed by a demon, keeps telling her mom, like, that's what happened. She's possessed, whatever. We need to exorcise her. Won't drop it, whatever. It's annoying, boring bullshit, blah, blah, blah. They end up going, Grace has dinner plans with Damon and Lucian. They pick her up. They go to a really nice restaurant, but they get taken to a separate room where their table is, which is very interesting.
Yeah.
And they do indeed have sex at this restaurant as well. All three of them,
Casually.
just so you know.
Hmm.
Because now we're doing threesomes after her and Lucian finally have sex. So she wakes up at 3 a.m. in her own bed after they finish doing their stuff. She is in a group text with them now, and they're telling her to behave and we'll see you later, whatever. She's having dinner with her family like the next night, and she can't eat. Or, sorry, it's been a couple days and she can't eat because Lucian and Damon haven't been around. And she's having an episode because everyone is loud. During that time, she asks if she can be excused, but he gets mad, whatever. The mom is like, stop, like defending her, not. But we do
Yeah.
find out that this is not her actual dad.
Oh.
This is her stepdad. Okay. Her
Oh.
mom and him weren't having sex around the time she was conceived. This is where the tea gets good. Okay.
Oh
This is
God.
a spoiler. If you don't want to be spoiled, skip. But if you're not going to read this, Keep on listening then, because it's about to get crazy. Okay.
Oh God.
Her mom admits that she was visited in her dreams by a mystery man who promised her the world and told her she deserved more and better than her husband. And they had sex a lot in her dream.
Ooh.
And that is how she became pregnant. Okay.
Interesting.
So it's not incest in the blood related sense that's been happening.
But still.
But it's still absolutely fucking disgusting, of course, because he was about to rape her. Like, actually stick himself into her. Before it was just his fingers. He was
Yeah,
going
no,
to stick himself in her. Disgusting. He grabbed her, threw her down, pulled her over the couch, and started hitting her ass with his belt. And he started assaulting her until her mom had said to stop. That's her daughter. And he was also like, no, she's not. That's your daughter, whatever. That's how we find all this out. She gets sent. Oh, Christy's also watching this all happen.
Oh.
Gets sent to her room after the grand reveal and is told to pray, and that tomorrow she's going to go to Father Thomas, confessing all of her sins, get baptized again, and become a renewed virgin. Okay?
Ew.
Disgusting. All right. We're in POV Lucian. He's waiting for Grace outside of school. He watched her walk into school this time, walked up to her, saw that she had a bruise on her chin and some dried blood on her lip, and that she looked like shit, and her hair was crazy, and she just rolled out of bed and got dressed and came to school, basically. He's asking her what's wrong. She looks like she's gonna cry. He brings her over to his car because she won't tell him what's going on. She's blaming it on a bad dream. We know it's not true. Okay. So she has welts on her thighs and her ass and her lower back from the belt beating, and he's fuming. He's like, who the fuck did this to you? And she's not saying anything. He loses his shit a little bit, so his glamour kind of goes away, and she tells him, please don't yell at me. He checks around to see if anyone's nearby. They're alone, so he teleports her back to his house. And he tells her, you're not going to that school anymore. You're not going to your parents' house anymore. You're going to stay at my place, and that's your house. They bang because it heals all of her wounds and bruises and shit.
Yeah.
Damon is investigating what the fuck went down at her house. He makes himself glamour so that she's invisible, and he's watching her parents in the TV room. They finish watching a movie, and the mom turns off the TV, and the husband is like, I'm not done watching TV. So she apologizes, hands him the remote. She goes to walk away, but he says, I'm not done with you either. And she's like, but I'm tired. And he says, do I need to teach you to be obedient as well? So he basically rapes the mom, or rapes his wife. Okay. Damien sees this. He's like, that's what's been going on. He fills in Lucian, and they're all snuggling together, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And they let her, or she fills them in on the mom situation. Okay. They told her that's why she's an incubus, because she was impregnated, or succubus, because she was impregnated by an incubus. And this is when Lucian and Damon start to talk about the torture that they're going to put her family through. She doesn't want them to kill her family, but obviously they're going to do that regardless. And they kill the mom, dad, and the sister. Okay?
Wow.
Yeah. They're like, she comes back. She knows that they killed them. She feels like shit, but they bring her cat and whatever. She's like, what am I going to do about school? They're like, what the fuck do you mean? You're not going back to school. But Damon was sweet, and he ends up grabbing her high school diploma for her so she can have that and say that she graduated. They take her shopping for new clothes. And we're at the end. This is the epilogue. That big part was the parents getting absolutely fucked up with the murder, just so you know.
Yeah.
So we're in the epilogue, and she's having a dream where her and Layla are hanging out, and they are talking about the new Satan's Priest song that Lucian wrote. Apparently, he wrote it for her. Then all of a sudden, Layla turns into a demon, and that demon is Lucifer, okay? Satan. And he tells her he's the one that fucked her mom and got her pregnant. So she is actually the daughter of Satan. Okay?
Huh.
And he tells her
Alright.
there were two things that were going to happen. One, you turn 19 and become a succubus. Or two, you die and you just become a succubus immediately. Okay? Which is what happened to her. So she keeps this secret from Lucian and Damon for a little bit and then finally tells them, and they're like, no big deal. The end. Which is also
Oh
why
my
I don't
gosh.
really like that, which is why I didn't give it a 4.5, because it was like, that's it. Here you go.
Yeah, I
Happy
feel like I need a
ending.
sequel to that.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
all in all, really interesting. A lot of things happening.
Honestly, a very wild ride.
Very wild ride. That's the tea. And yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy cow. I agree. I think the ending could have been or
A
should have
lot
been
better.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It felt so rushed. Like it,
Yeah, I hate that.
and I was like,
Yeah, I hate when authors rush the ending. It's like you've given me so much. Why can't you just like stick the landing?
like I
Yeah.
would have loved a couple more class scenes with Lucian talking about demons. I
Yeah.
like when she got into that stuff, I'm like, yeah, that shit's interesting. Or
Yeah, demonology is interesting.
just like give a little bit more to feed the plot. Cause like the other thing that I thought
Yeah.
was super weird was like, what? People are just getting kidnapped and murdered and no one can find who's doing these things.
Yeah. Or like the connection.
Yeah, and
Um,
like the Satan's Priest being a band, and like, are they just a local band, or are they like a
yeah.
big band? Because like, are they traveling for their concerts? Because the concert she got bused to was like a couple hours outside of their town or her town.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I don't know. She never got approached for having sex with Sebastian. And I'm like, is this not a small town? It was just so like weird.
I wonder I shouldn't say a friend. I know a person
Mhm.
who was reading a book and she was like, I feel like the author wrote all the smut and then try to squeeze a plot in around it. And I
This,
wonder if
yeah.
that's how this was too. Yeah.
This,
If it was
yeah.
like, I'm gonna write all these smut scenes and then I'm just gonna work a plot in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It did have, it did feel like that. Don't get me wrong, I did like the plot of her being Satan's daughter
Yeah.
and how the mom was having sex dreams with Satan, even though she didn't know it was Satan
Yeah.
because she's so Catholic, and that she also secretly hated her husband.
Yeah, that was interesting.
But yeah, giving her the schizophrenia was interesting to give her that
I
trigger,
almost
but
thought at the end it was gonna be like, and then I took my medicine regularly and all the demons went away.
like, but it was like almost the schizophrenia was only a loophole for certain things to cause
Yeah.
her to get triggered. And it was like, she could have easily just had PTSD or like some sort of like other thing that was causing her
Yeah.
anxiety and panic attacks. But because I didn't really understand, the only time the paranoia really came into play was when she was at lunch and she felt like everyone was talking about her. And it was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I don't
I feel
know.
like schizophrenia is not like understood either. I feel like people know it very generally, and then they're like, "I'm gonna put it in this media format," and I'm like, I don't know. I don't like
Yeah.
when media uses schizophrenia because it is just such a complex mental disorder that
Hmm.
people just use the stereotypes, and I don't like that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And
when I heard schizophrenia, I was like,
yeah, it very much felt like a stereotype for sure.
yeah,
So,
because not everyone who has schizophrenia is like crazy or what. I don't know. It just is annoying,
yeah.
but
Yeah. But I
What
did,
an interesting story.
yeah, I did like that we got all three POVs. You know how big I am on
Yes.
POVs.
You do love a
I
POV. There's
do
one
love
thing
a
about Jordan.
POV.
She loves a POV. I
Yeah,
can see that.
yeah. But good book, disgusting at
Yeah,
some parts, but overall,
absolutely.
would I read it again? Probably not. If there's a second, would I read it?
Yeah.
Probably not. So it was
Yeah.
good for what it was,
That's
but
the plot wasn't as good, but it was it did sound interesting. I
it,
wouldn't add it to my list, but
yeah, I wouldn't recommend adding it to your list because I don't think it's your up your alley. When I first started reading it and they were doing like the
yes.
sacrifice and stuff, I was like, okay. But after she comes back to life, it's like
You're like
it's dark
sacrifice.
romance and that's it. So
Yeah, and
yeah.
if you know anything about me, I like the dark over the romance because like I've read Haunting Adeline and I was way more into the plot than
Right.
everything else. People thought
Hmm.
I was crazy, but I totally get that.
Yeah.
Alrighty, are you ready for some unfortunately real life trauma?
Oh yeah. I am ready.
So I'm doing something a little different this week, and it's only because I recently read it and I've been so into this case. But today I'm actually doing a memoir. And it's just as dark as like all the other stuff I've covered. It just covers the perspective of a real life case. So today I'm doing The House of My Mother by Shari Franke. If you need to like connection of who that is, this is going to be Ruby Franke's daughter, and that is Ruby Franke, as in Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt. It was a really big case last year. It went viral everywhere. There's a documentary that just came out on Hulu called The Devil in the Family. I think that's what it's called, The Devil in the Family. I highly recommend watching it because there's lots of like never before seen footage from their YouTube channel. The girl who wrote this book, Shari, her brother Chad, and the father are also in the documentary and talk about everything. It's really interesting. So, this is her memoir, and it's just a very interesting perspective that a lot of people didn't get to see when the case did come out. So, there are trigger warnings as usual. There's child abuse, grooming, sexual abuse, and pedophilia. And we'll get into that because from what we know, Ruby Franke's case did not have anything to do with grooming, sexual abuse, and pedophilia. Shari, unfortunately, just went through that outside of the family dynamic, which I'll go over and is very sad. It is 320 pages. I gave it a 4 out of 5. Goodreads gave it a 4.5 out of 5. The only reason I gave it a 4 was because at times it's you have to remember she's 21. So this book just came out like a month ago. So she's 21 years old, and when she writes it does seem very juvenile. Like it's a younger, like it's not bad writing necessarily, it's just not as good as more seasoned writers, which is fine. But that's why I gave it a 4. Regardless, she went through a lot. So this whole book is from the perspective of Shari Franke. As I mentioned, she is the oldest of, I want to say, yeah, 6 kids. So she's the oldest girl, or oldest period. So we're going to start talking about her mom and dad. So the whole family are members of the Mormon Church of Latter-day Saints. If any of you have seen the satire musical Book of Mormon, you probably know a lot about the Church of Latter-day Saints. It is very ridiculous in my opinion, but that's not my place to judge. So we have Ruby Franke, before had a different last name, obviously. She was about 19 years old, just starting college at Brigham Young University. For those who don't know, Brigham Young was the founder of Mormonism. And so there's a huge university in Utah called Brigham Young University where a lot of Mormons go. So Ruby was 19 and she had like tons of suitors. Like everyone wanted to be with this girl because in that religion, it's very much like you want to get married as soon as possible. You want to settle down as soon as possible, start having children. So all these men are wanting to like marry her. And that's when she meets Kevin. And Kevin was, I believe he was 21 or 22 at the time. He was a couple years older than her and in college as well. Kevin was one of the guys she was seeing, but he ended up going to her dorm at one point and saw that she had this like list. And it was a list of like everything she wants her future husband to be. Like, I need him to be as religious, super into me, have a good job, like just all this stuff. And on her list, she had all the guys that were like trying to court her because they don't date, they court. So all the guys who were trying to court her, and she had like checked off which things fit which guy. So what Kevin did was he saw this list and he cheated and just did everything that was on the list to win her over. And he did. He won her over and they got married. So Ruby was from a really strict home. And as a lot of women who grow up in a very strict religious home, she wanted to be nothing more than a wife and a mother. A lot. And there's nothing wrong with just wanting to be a wife and a mother. I'm going to say that. However, it's okay to strive to be things other than just a wife and a mother, or you don't have to be a wife and a mother at all. But that's what she wanted to be. She didn't want to work. She just wanted to be a wife and a mother. Fine. So, as in true Mormon fashion, they got married very quickly. I believe they only dated for like a couple weeks and they got married 3 months after meeting, which is very Mormon fashion. Every Mormon I've ever known has gotten married extreme. That's why a lot of Mormons get divorced as well, because they marry so young and so quick. But yeah, they married after 3 months of meeting each other, which is crazy. So there are 6 siblings. However, I'm only going to talk about the 2 oldest because legally that's all the only names you're really allowed to talk about. So the oldest is Shari. The next oldest is Chad. I believe Shari right now is 21 and Chad is 19. The younger 4 siblings are still in DCF custody, and in order to hide their identity, their names have not been, well, people might know their names from the YouTube channel. Their names haven't been shared in the cases, haven't been shared in the documentary, not in this memoir. They're not really talked about, which is probably really good. They deserve a break from the limelight, to be honest. So Ruby was not a very comforting mother. Despite the fact that she always wanted to be a mother, she wasn't very maternal. She did not coddle her children. Even from a super young age, she was very much like, they have to learn, like very strict, which is strange for someone who wants to be a mother so badly. And then one day, Ruby started hearing about blogs online. So we're going to start blogging, not vlogging, but like the blogs online. And Ruby realized she just loved attention. So she started doing like cooking blogs, mommy blogs. Like that was her bread and butter for a while. During this time, she started giving Shari piano lessons because Ruby grew up playing piano. She's like, my child's going to learn piano too. And this is when the physical abuse starts. So she wakes Shari up an hour before she has to get ready for school, and she makes her sit down and play piano. And whenever Shari messes up even a little bit, she'll like hit her arm or like flick her lips, just like all kinds of stuff, like very stuff you shouldn't do for such little mistakes. And it was during these lessons that Shari said, like, quote unquote, she would like journal, and she said, my mommy wasn't very nice to me. So it's like from a young age, Shari was like, my mom's not nice to me,
What
which is
age?
crazy.
What age did she
I say this is around, I believe this is around 7 and 8 years old.
Ugh.
She was quite young. She was like young enough to understand. But she's like, yeah, my mom isn't very nice to me. She even
Yeah.
said at one point, she goes, I don't think my mom likes me.
Oh my
So
God.
yeah, it's really crazy. So as they got older, the abuse grew. If Shari messed anything up, her mother would smack her. Would not, even outside of piano lessons. One day, her brother Chad, it was when he was younger. I want to say he was like also maybe 7 or 8 at this time. He
Mhm.
cut off like a piece of his sister's hair. And as a consequence, Ruby shaved one strip of hair down his head and made him wear it like that for days. So he went to school with like this reverse mohawk, basically.
Oh.
Yeah, and Shari remembers trying to like cover for him just because she knew Ruby would do something really crazy. And Ruby was like, you will never cover for him again. He has to face his consequences. It was just very bad. So, as we go on, mommy vlogging becomes really big in the Latter-day Saints faith because when it comes to Mormonism, their big thing is, and it's really a lot of religions have this as well. It's like, oh, what's the term? Something and multiply. Be fruitful and multiply, maybe? I don't know. Their big thing is they want to have a lot of kids so that the message can spread as far as can be. And Mormonism is like, if you've ever seen Mormons in the wild who come to your door and stuff like that, their big thing is to spread the word and to try to recruit as many people. So if you
Mm-hmm.
notice, a lot of mommy vloggers are religious, especially Mormon. And that's because it was just a really big thing. People were like, oh, if we start vlogging and putting it on YouTube, people will start noticing our religion.
Yeah.
So in 2015, which is when I graduated high school, which is crazy, the YouTube channel called 8 Passengers was born. So it was Ruby and Kevin, and then their 6 children, 8 Passengers. So Shari's the daughter, hated being filmed, especially because she was just 12 years old and just trying to grow up. I'm a big believer that you can record your children. Like, I take videos of my nephews all the time. My mom had a camcorder. It was fine. But when you're constantly shoving a camera in your child's face, especially for to exploit them, I can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a vlogger, she's a TikToker, who I've actually met, who goes to Disney a lot with her kids. And I love her. And she'll show like the back of her kids' heads and kind of like talk about them. Never shoves the camera in their face. I love her. Like she makes it about her being a mom without shoving the camera in their face. And I love that because this is not what Ruby did. So one day they had one video that went bonkers viral. And it was a video of the younger sister, like I think it was the youngest child, climbing out of her crib. So child climbed out of their crib and it just grew like millions of views. So this started feeding Ruby's need for attention to the point where Ruby remodeled the whole house so it'd be better for filming. Shari ended up learning that if she wanted something, she had to ask for it on camera because mom was nice in front of the camera. And Ruby rarely played the bad guy. That's who she was. So after that film went viral, so did their channel. They blew up. So in 8th grade, Shari decided to start her own YouTube channel. She saw what it did for her mom and she's like, yeah, I want to do that too. So she went to her mom and she's like, hey, can you give me a shout out on our family channel, 8 Passengers? And Ruby laughed at her and told her she needed to get 100,000 followers on her own before getting a shout out since she was so young. She said, basically, when you create a YouTube account, you create this AdSense account as well. And that's what helps. That's where you get your money from, basically. It's like a
Right.
separate account. So Ruby was like, I have to manage your AdSense accounts and collect all the money from your channel, and I'll like save it for you. And eventually down the road, she would give her a shout out once she reached that following on her own, which is still ridiculous, whatever.
Right.
But as Shari started earning money from her own YouTube channel because it started growing, her mom started taking a fee out every time she got money. So initially, the money was supposed to be like a little nesting egg for her when she graduated high school. But as
Yeah.
she started making money, Ruby started taking money out as like a manager's fee, which is so stupid. That was just, oh god, it just showed how like much of a piece of shit Ruby was. So while in middle school, Ruby regulated everything Shari did when it came to social media. And she was really strict about it, obviously. She would like tell her what to post, what not to post, things like that. So one day, behind her parents' back, Shari downloaded Snapchat and ended up dating a boy named Jake. After school one day, Shari had her first kiss with Jake, but the high wore off because she came home and found out that her parents had found out she had Snapchat, and they were pissed. They ended up replacing her smartphone with a flip phone, which
Hmm.
is so kind of them. I always said if I have children, I'd give them a flip phone first because they got to deal with it the way I deal with it.
100%.
But regardless, Ruby was mad because basically she wasn't mad because like she was being unsafe or whatever. She was like, you could have ruined the brand, which is just you care about the brand more than your child. So it was during this time that Shari, remember she's like in 8th grade, Shari found out what depression was during a health class because in health class they start talking about mental illness.
Yeah.
And basically the teacher started talking about depression and Shari was like, oh my god, I relate with everything you just said. So that night she ended up confiding in her dad and she's like, I think I might be depressed. And he
Yeah.
was like, well, why don't we try therapy? But Ruby, of course, dismissed the idea, telling her she just needed to exercise more. What a nice thing to tell your daughter. Shari also struggled a lot with the thought of her kissing Jake, as it is against their religion. So Catholics go to a priest, Mormons go to a bishop. Don't ask me what the difference is. I don't know. We didn't have that in my Protestant church.
Wait,
Um,
are Mormons not allowed to kiss?
they're not supposed to do
Anything?
anything before marriage. So a
Hmm.
lot of it depends on what branch of Mormon you are. A lot of Mormons believe in like not doing anything before marriage. A lot of Mormons obviously don't follow that,
Right.
even though that's what's taught. If you ever watch 19 Kids and Counting, they're a branch of Mormonism. And in their religion or their branch of Mormonism, when you start courting someone, you can only side hug them. You can't even hold hands until you're engaged. And your first kiss is like on your wedding day in front of everybody.
That's
So,
crazy.
oh, I could go in. I'm going to give you another documentary to watch about the Duggars. That's a whole other side of religious trauma that I can't even get into right now. But for the Latter day Saints, it's like not against the religion not to kiss, it's just really frowned upon because
Okay.
they're way more strict. That's why so many Mormons, especially, get married so quickly, is
Right.
because they're like, we want to do everything
Right.
to the point where they try to find loopholes. Have you ever heard of soaking?
Oh, yes. No, I was saying because it's like they have so
Yeah.
many loopholes, they can't even
It's
kiss. That's
It's
crazy.
it's just really frowned upon. It's not
Yeah.
like, I guess,
Okay.
against, it's just, but she's also in middle school, and she's constantly shamed for having any form of sexual desire in any capacity, so, she's just really feels guilty, and she's depressed. I get
Right.
it. So, her bishop, she confides in her bishop, and he's like, "It's okay, like, God knows your heart, and God knows that you didn't feel the best about it, so it's okay, it happened, don't worry about it." But she obsesses over it to the point where even the bishop was like, "Hey, have you ever gone to therapy?" Which is crazy if your bishop is telling you that, because usually Mormons are very much like, "No, you just need God." So at this point, Ruby is full on exploiting her children for the channel. At one point, she asked Shari if she would wax her eyebrows for a video, and in return, she'd give her $100.
Like
Then
wax
Ruby,
all of it?
no, she just wanted to
Oh.
like wax her eyebrows. Ruby's like, "Oh, Shari, can I just wax your eyebrows like you do in a spa? And I'll give you
Oh,
$100 for
okay, okay,
participating in
okay.
the video."
Okay.
However, comma, Ruby purposefully messed them up for the video. The video was actually, I think, titled something along the lines of like, "I'm sorry, Shari," or something like that. And of course, Shari did not see the $100 she was promised. So eventually, Ruby found out that Shari had been seeing Jake through like Jake's mom or something. Like, they got together and were like, "Hey, did you know our children are seeing each other?" And usually, a sane parent would be like, "Hey, maybe we should talk about this. It's okay if you date, but like," Ruby transferred Shari to a whole different school purely because she was dating a boy.
Okay.
And Shari was pissed because she's like, "But I like my school." So after finding this out, Ruby was like, "Fine, we'll let you go to therapy." So, however, in therapy, Shari ended up getting comfortable with the therapist and opened up a bit about her mom. So she opened up to her therapist about how like she doesn't know if her mom likes her, all the stuff that happens at home. And because she's a minor, there's times where like the therapist will bring the parent in. So the therapist brought Ruby in and was like, "Shari, can you tell your mom some of what you just told me?" So Shari had really come to like therapy. And one day she came home, she's like running to get her clothes changed and eat something so she could head to therapy. And Ruby was like, "Hey, we don't have therapy today. Like, you're good. You can slow down." And Sherry's like, "What do you mean I don't have therapy today?" And Ruby goes, "Oh, the therapist called and she said she thought you were fine and didn't need therapy anymore." And Shari was just crushed by this because it was like the one space she had to talk about this, and she thought it was like helping and working. And so to this day, Shari doesn't know if Ruby made it up or if that's what the therapist really said, because it could go either way. There are some really shitty therapists out there who will say I had a therapist once who's like, "Do you really think you need therapy?" And I was like, "Excuse me." What? That is never a thing you
Yeah,
say.
I do actually.
That's why I sought you out. So it could have been a shitty therapist, but knowing Ruby, I think Ruby made it but
Yeah.
that's all. So at this point, Chad, the second oldest, was acting out a lot, and his parents just like didn't know what to do. Obviously, his acting out came from having like the camera constantly shoved in his face, the strict household. He just acted out. It happens. So through some friends, Ruby ended up finding a therapist named Jody Hildebrandt. So Jody suggested that they send Chad to a wilderness camp to start off with. There are a couple of documentaries on Netflix about this, but I highly recommend everybody go watch a documentary about these camps for children who act out. There's wilderness camps, there's like regular camps. It is batshit fucking crazy, these camps that they send these kids to. Again, that's a whole other tangent that I can't even go off on right now, but they did send Chad to one of these camps, and I highly recommend doing some research into it because these camps still exist, and they're crazy and abusive, and no matter how many times you get them shut down, they somehow keep popping up, and people keep sending their kids to them for some reason.
Yeah.
So Chad left for 3 months on this camp, and Shari was like, I'm gonna 3 months, yeah. And this one's worse because it was like they left him in the woods, like naked and afraid style, and they're like, "You're gonna learn your lesson."
I
Yeah,
thought
it's
these camps were like a month long. That's
oh
so
no. Watch
crazy.
the Netflix documentary. A lot of these camps, kids can go there until they're 18. Some of them get kidnapped at like 11 or 12, and they stay there until they're 18.
What? Like a boarding
Oh,
school.
yes, but worse
Oh,
and
well,
not
yeah, of course,
regulated
worse.
and not
Yes.
good.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll send you a documentary, another document. I'll send you a list of documentaries, but I'll
Oh,
send you another
perfect.
documentary from Netflix about these schools. And yeah, this one was just 3 months, crazily enough. Ruby actually made, and it's in the other documentary that I told you about, The Devil in the Family, where she made a video of them picking him up from camp. And Chad's like running into their arms, and it's the song that's like, I'm coming home, I'm coming home. And like they're acting like he's coming home from war, not the wilderness camp they sent him to because he was acting out like a teenager does. I digress. So while Chad's gone, Shari's like, I'm going to start doing some digging into this Jody Hildebrandt character because she's starting to become more relevant in my life. Ruby's talking to her a lot and taking her advice from Jody about Chad. So Shari finds out that Jody has 2 children who disowned her, like straight up disowned her. They're like, that is not my mom. Fuck that woman, basically. On top of that, Jody is not a licensed therapist or psychologist. She had a license, and then it was suspended in 2012 for violating HIPAA. There was also a slew of accusations towards Jody about her breaking up people's marriages, getting people kicked out of the church, all kinds of stuff. And that HIPAA violation she broke, it was because they were doing a group therapy session, like some kind of men's Bible study-ish thing.
Yeah.
And somebody who she had individual counseling with was in that group. And randomly she brought up, she's like, let's call him Tim. She's like, yeah, Tim, isn't that like how you feel like you're gay sometimes? You want to talk about that? Like she started talking about his problems from individual therapy in this like group session. And
Oh my
she
God.
violated HIPAA and got her license taken away. Yet
Yeah.
she's still technically practicing therapy, which she shouldn't be doing. So Chad came back and continued therapy with Jody over the phone. And it was basically terrible. Chad tried to just like agree with her with everything just to like make her happy and get it over with. But she could like tell he was bullshitting her and like double down, which is terrible. It was around this time that they found out Jody ran a group that's actually a cult. In my opinion, it's a cult. It was never identified as one, but it is a cult. And it was called Connections with an X in there somewhere. Connections. And slowly, Ruby and Kevin started attending it in different ways, whether it was like the group sessions, they had like little groups that they split off into. They had, oh my God, they had these like packages you could buy where like you could take all her classes and stuff like that. It was crazy. It was like thousands of dollars you would pay for to be in this group.
Yeah.
So the more Ruby joined in with Connections, she slowly started letting go of her channel, which was, by the way, their main source of income, and started to become a coach for Connections. So It was here that Jody started really taking over their lives because she did not think that Chad was healing fast enough and urged Ruby to pull him out of football and track, which were his two favorite things.
Oh.
When your kid's acting up, what do? Take away the only thing that gives them any structure or motivation. And he obviously was crushed by this. And the parents just followed her blindly. And Chad was like Shari tried to console him, and Chad was like, this is just my life. Like, he felt so helpless. It was ridiculous. Ruby even told Shari that she had to do therapy with Jody or she would take her car away. So Shari started being brainwashed by Jody. Jody was definitely a brainwashed kind of person. Shari was young. At this point, I think she was 17 years old when she started doing therapy with Jody. And Jody was just extremely manipulative. I don't blame Shari at all for being brainwashed, okay? She was young. Her parents told her this was a good idea. And Jody was incredibly manipulative to the point where she turned Shari into a super judgmental person that nobody wanted to be around. So, like, whenever Shari felt like shame about something, because Shari's was like me, like, feels a lot of shame. And that comes when you're brought up in a religious background. But instead of trying to heal her shame and working on that like a good therapist would do, he would have her turn it around on other people to the point where she would start like calling out other students and being like, do you think that was a good choice you made? Like, do you think that was very godly of you? Like, people just hated her. And that was because Jody would make her turn her thinking around.
Yeah.
So finally in 2020, which seems like 3 days ago, Ruby posted a video on her YouTube channel where they explained how Chad got into trouble for playing like a prank on his little sister. So at this point, I think Chad was like 16 years old. And this is where everything like really goes to shit for the Franke family. This is the first time that anybody realized something was wrong. This particular video I'm about to talk about, their editor was even like, I don't think you want to post this. Like, this is not going to go over well. And Ruby's like, I have nothing to hide. People should know. So it was a video in 2020. Chad got in trouble for pranking his little sister. I don't remember what the prank was. And as a punishment, they took his room away for 7 months. So for 210 days, he actually slept on a beanbag in the basement. For 7 months.
Okay.
So YouTube immediately blew up over this, calling this punishment abusive. And Ruby crumbled because, in her words, she's like, they don't understand me. And so it wasn't just this particular incident. After this video, there were other videos that came out where she would explain her punishments. So one of her punishments was she had a child who was in charge of packing her lunch. All their children were in charge of packing their lunches for school every day. And there was one girl who forgot to pack her lunch. So the teacher called and was like, hey, can you bring a lunch to the school? Blah, blah, blah. And Ruby was like, no, I'm not. It's her job to pack her lunch. If she didn't pack it, she's going to get hungry and you guys better not feed her anything. This child was a kindergartner. So she said, since my kindergartner did not pack a lunch, she does not get to eat. Hi, honey. Where are you? Hi. Yeah, which is crazy. And she tried to justify it by being like, it was the end of the day, the school's far away. And I even talked to my sister about this. I'm like, literally tell them like, okay, get her a hot lunch there. I'll pay for it when I pick her up. Like, she didn't want her eating at all. Another one was, I guess one of her other daughters found scissors, like young daughter preschool, and was cutting things around the house. So instead of hiding the scissors, getting kid-friendly scissors, she took one of her favorite stuffed animals and goes, if you cut one more thing in my house, I'm cutting this animal's head off. And videotaped everything, put it all on YouTube. This wasn't like hidden footage. She posted all of this. And it was always an eye for an eye thing. So overnight, after seeing all these videos, sponsors pulled out of their deals. People turned on her, basically making their main income dwindle. Like, the husband was an engineer, but this was their main source of income. They lived in a giant house and had this more lavish lifestyle because of YouTube, and their life just flipped overnight.
Yeah.
So finally, Shari had the spell broken when it came to Jody, because in a session after this happened, Jody had admitted in a session, she was like, oh, I feel like babies are entitled. She's like, just because you cry doesn't mean you get everything you want. When she says baby, she's talking like newborns. Like, she straight up was like, a newborn is entitled because they shouldn't just get everything they want because they cry. Like, how? I'm sorry. That's fucking stupid. So when she said that, Shari was like, oh, you're fucking crazy. What do you mean babies are entitled? They are, but in like a way where it's like, yeah, you feed a baby when it's crying. Like, that's just how it works.
Yeah.
Anyway, so from then on, Shari was going to rebel Jody and her mother, who just blindly followed Jody. Shari was done. This was around when she was 18 years old. And she was heading off to college and everything. So now we're going to meet Derek. I'm not going to go too into Derek. This is a part of the story that is very personal to Shari. And I think if you want to know more, you can read Shari's perspective on it in her book. But Derek was a higher up in the church. He was married and had kids. And at 18, Shari's going through a lot, and she looked to him for guidance. Because if you grew up in a religious family, you know, you look to the higher ups in your church for guidance. I did it. I had tons of higher ups in the church that I would talk to when I was in high school. So that's what she did. Ruby and Jody were really against her being around him, really against her being around Derek, which is made her want to be around him more, basically. She was like, well, if my mom and Jody don't like it, then I'm going to do it. So very long story short, he basically grooms Shari to the point where he's obsessively texting her, he's groping her, he's doing some very R-rated stuff with her. And she has this very long, complicated journey with this, to the point where she loses her really quick in the Mormon church. They have this thing, I think it's called a certificate. It's like when you go through do you know what communion is?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you go through a communion, your first communion in the Catholic Church, you get to do communion and other like rituals within the church. When you're in the Mormon church, you get the certificate at one point, and that lets you participate in certain rituals. When she came forward about this abuse from him, and the church took away her certificate, and she wasn't allowed to participate in church anymore, which crushed her because she loved church.
Yeah.
And of course, nothing happened to him at all.
Of course.
Because of this. But for a long time, Derek was the only one who listened to her about her family. And so she just kept him around, which totally makes sense.
Yeah.
And she talks a lot about like the therapy she went to later in life to go over all of this. And she talks about, I didn't know there was a fourth panic response. So there's fight, flight, fear, and fawn.
Yeah.
And fawn is like where you do anything to make someone happy. And that's what she did.
Yeah.
Her story with Derek is very extensive, and it is worth the read to understand her story. I just didn't want to talk a lot about it in regards to what happened with her mother and stuff. So I just wanted to touch on that so we understood what's happening in her life. That's where the like pedophilia, sexual abuse comes into play. So it is 2 weeks before Shari is going to leave for college. And Ruby comes into the house, looks at Shari and says, pack the shit out of your room and get out. And she's like, I'll go to college for 2 weeks. She goes, you can sleep downstairs, but you got to get out of your room. You got to clean everything out and get out. And she's like, why? She's like, Jody has to come stay with us because she's not well. What she meant by that was Jody thinks she's possessed by the devil. And so Ruby's like, we're going to take her in. And this is where you got to watch the documentary, because Jody makes these like home videos of herself and of her being possessed, and they're hysterical. So yeah, Ruby kicked Shari out of her room so Jody could basically move in there. And Jody and Ruby spend a lot of time in that room. A lot of time. We do learn later on that they did have a little romantic relationship, which is really weird because Jody is very homophobic and all kinds of stuff. But they had a very fun relationship. To the point where like Ruby, I guess, used to tell her like, I don't like how you don't please me a lot. I have to please you a lot. It's a thing. But yeah, Jody's possessed. Yeah, Jody's possessed and moving in. So that Christmas, her first year in college, she's a freshman. Shari comes home for Christmas, and she is shocked because Jody has convinced Ruby that the two youngest children in the family have felt way too entitled, and convinces them to not get them Christmas presents that year. So everybody got Christmas presents and open presents except for the two youngest children. And that's where Shari was like, I'm done. This is bullshit. I'm out. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you guys? So, mind you, Dad's not doing shit about this. There's a dad in all this. He's not doing one goddamn thing about any of this.
Yeah, I was going to say the lack of dad mention is crazy.
Kevin's going to come into play. And Kevin is... I have a lot of opinions about Kevin. So this is the time in her life where Shari leans on Mr. and Mrs. Heyman. So Mr. Heyman was actually her former English teacher. And through all this time, they become like surrogate parents for Shari to the point where she even was like, can I call you guys mom and dad? Even in the documentary, you'll see she doesn't call Ruby or Kevin mom and dad. She calls them Ruby and Kevin. She calls these other people, Mr. and Mrs. Heyman, who are in the documentary, she calls them mom and dad.
Yeah.
Which I do love that she was able to find somebody who could be surrogate parents for her because her parents are pieces of shit. So,
yeah.
Eventually, Jody convinces Ruby to kick both Chad and Kevin out of the home until further notice. Literally goes to Chad and Kevin. Chad's like, I don't know, 18 at this point. And she's like, get him out. Her reasoning, you might ask? I don't remember what the reasoning was for Chad, but the reasoning for Kevin is she's claiming that Kevin is a pedophile. What would Kevin do to make him a pedophile, you might ask? Jody's like, oh yeah, you like when you hug your daughter? I saw you hugging your daughter over there. You're probably having perverted thoughts about your daughter while you're hugging her, isn't that? Literally, the man just hugged his kid, and she's like spins it, convinces Ruby to kick him out of the house. So basically, both walked out of the house with no fight and had no contact with the family for an entire year. I'm not going to blame Chad in a lot of this. Chad was 18. He was young. He was heavily influenced and brainwashed from a young age. Kevin, on the other hand, Kevin walked out of that goddamn house and didn't talk to anybody for a year. Didn't talk to his kids for a year, never asked about his kids, didn't know what was going on at home, nothing, purely because his wife said so.
Yeah, didn't get a divorce, didn't talk to a lawyer, didn't do anything.
Didn't talk to a therapist. Literally, he did nothing. To this day, he's still trying to get custody of his 4 younger children, and I don't believe he should have custody at all because he just left them. Like later, he'll claim, I didn't know what was going on in the house because he never checked in. I digress. So Shari would try to reach out to both Chad and Kevin, but because of all of this, they would like block her and be like, don't talk to us. To the point where like Shari found out where Chad was living and went to go see him. And he was like, never come see me again. Again, I don't blame Chad. He was young and brainwashed from a young age. I don't blame him for this. Kevin, I blame. So Shari starts going through therapy again, and she starts opening her eyes to all this abuse. So once she starts realizing how heavily abusive her mother is, she goes to her bank account that her mom still has access to, and it's like all the money from her YouTube account, and she drains the entire account into a personal, like Shari takes out all the money and puts it in her own banking account because she's scared her mom's going to take it now that she's realizing how abusive her mom was. So then the next day, the family lawyer calls Shari and tells her that she has been removed from both the family's health care plan and the car insurance. So after finding out that she drained the account, Ruby's like, fine, I'm going to take away everything from you. However, Shari's car was originally her dad's car. And she was like, in order to get new car insurance, I need the deed to the car. And she's petrified that Ruby's not going to give it to her. So she wanted to do like a third party exchange, like meet at somewhere mutual to grab the document. Ruby agrees to give her the deed, which is very strange. And she agrees to give it to a trusted friend. And then Shari will go pick it up from that friend. That way she doesn't have to talk to her mom at all. So that day, Shari and Mrs. Hammond, her surrogate mother, go to this third party's house to get the deed. And surprise, Ruby shows up in an ambush to confront her daughter. And basically Ruby tells her, like, you are not my fucking daughter. Like, I disown you. I don't want you. You're not my daughter. Gives her the deed, and they walk out. And Shari obviously is crying because, like, this is a lot. When the woman you grew up with disowned you and everything. So thankfully, got her car. So at this point, she has no contact with her siblings at all and ends up asking a neighbor to keep an eye out on them. So one day they notice that the kids have been home for 5 days, but no adults have been home. Like there's no adult, like none of the cars are in the driveway, none of the adults are home. Shari calls CPS, but basically CPS can't do anything because the kids aren't answering the door. Shari for months tries to get the cops to take this abuse seriously and get her siblings out, but basically nothing can be proven. There's just, it's not like visual abuse, so it's so hard for them to get any form of proof.
Right.
Until one day, Shari gets a call that the police are at the family's house. and she runs to find out what happens. This is where it gets really crazy. A lot of people know the very viral video. It's a Ring camera video of a very scrawny little boy coming to the house and asking the owner of the house if they can call the police for them. This was one of her younger siblings who had been bound up in Jody Hildebrand's house. And when they found him, he was severely malnourished. On top of that, he had his ankles and his wrists had this honey and cayenne pepper concoction on it with plastic wrapped around and then duct tape wrapped around where he was bound. And basically it created all these like welts and sores from this concoction. So he ended up being the reason that Jody and Ruby were both arrested. Thank goodness. When you watch the videos as well, they only found the two youngest siblings in the home. They later find out that Ruby thought both of them were like possessed by the devil and they were trying to get the devil out.
Right.
The youngest daughter was found, her head shaved, and she was in a closet. It took first responders 3 hours to coax her out of the closet because she was so scared and so brainwashed. So at this point, Kevin, the dad, moves back to the house. He again tries to fight for custody and everything. He even has said like he ends up divorcing her, thankfully, but he says like he still loves her, which is so crazy. I don't grow a spine. Anyway, Jody and Ruby,
enabler.
Oh, I don't even think he was enabling. I think he was just so freaking spineless that he's like, okay. It wasn't even enabling. It wasn't like he was like,
that is enabling.
It's more passive enabling than
it's a type of enabling. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, you're right. So yeah, like I said, to this day, he still is trying to get custody over those younger 4 kids, and I hope to God they never give him custody because he does not deserve it. Jody and Ruby each got up to 30 years in prison. I think the sentence is 5 to 30 years. If from what I've heard, I don't think they'll ever get paroled. Not for the whole 30 years.
Yeah.
Because basically there was no trial. They both took a plea deal. Yeah, it was really annoying. They basically took a plea deal to testify against one another, and they each got up to 30 years. So Shari is actually at the is in the courtroom when her mom is sentenced. And she talks about how she doesn't ever look at her mom during this time because she's so disgusted, but she has to like go and hear everything. The speech Ruby gives in the courtroom is honestly shocking as well. She says, "To my 6 little ducklings, I'm so sorry." And I'm like, shut the fuck up, Ruby. No one cares. Anyway, sorry, I digress. So in an odd turn of event and a way to heal, Kevin, the father, and Shari and Chad start to form and build their relationships again. I don't like Kevin, but if it's good for Shari and Chad's healing, so be it. So they start forming a relationship again. They have like dinners together. I'm not sure about Chad, but Shari says that she still doesn't call Kevin dad. So start a relationship with him, but that is not her father. So after the years go by, Shari gets Derek out of her life. Derek was the one who sexually assaulted her, thank God. She gets him out. And she starts over at a new church that basically tells her what you went through with not only Derek, but your mom is terrible. And the fact that you were ever punished in a church for that is ridiculous. So she finds a home. And then we conclude all this by Shari receiving a letter from Ruby while she's in jail. And shockingly, the letter is not to apologize to Shari for anything. She doesn't say, "I'm sorry for the abuse. I'm sorry that all this happened." She's like, "I should have spent more time with you, Shari. I should have been there for you and spent more time with you." And Shari's like, "That's not the problem here."
Yeah.
So Shari goes and talk a lot about how that is the last. She has never contacted her mom since being disowned, but that was the last contact she had from her mom. So she's like, she never answered that, never talked to her mom again. Sorry, never talked to Ruby again. And that's where we let off. She has a quote unquote happy ending. She's in therapy. She's still going strong at college. She is really creating a life for herself. And I have to say, I am not a religious person, nor do I really love religion. But I have to say, I give Shari a lot of credit for staying so strong in her faith through all of this. It says a lot about a person who is so committed to their religion through all the strife that their religion has caused them. And so I really give props to her for that. Shari went through a lot and she's really trying to come out at the other end. So now she's a really big advocate for child abuse and everything like that. And she still works all the time to get her younger siblings to a better place.
Yeah.
We don't know anything about the 4 younger siblings. We know that they're in like CPS care, but we don't know like where they are, how they're doing. We know nothing about them. We know they were in the hospital for a while after their rescue, but that's all we got. And I'm glad we do because those children deserve to be out of the spotlight for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So again, if you want to know more about this, Shari did a beautiful job telling her story, and I liked that it was just her story. She didn't make it completely about her mom. It was a lot more about her life, which I liked. But it was a really good insight to this part of the story. If you want to learn more about this, go watch The Devil in the Family on Hulu. It is so good, and Shari's in it as well. But yeah, that's the crazy ride and Shari's POV from the Franke case, which is crazy.
So crazy.
It's just... Yeah, I'm going to give you some documentary recommendations that you can go into a spiral whenever you get the time to do so, but it's definitely... The 3 I recommend are definitely The Devil in the Family, which is the Franke case, Shiny Happy People on Amazon Prime, which is about the Duggars, and then, oh my gosh, I can't remember the last one. I'll look it up. It's the one on Netflix about the camps and schools and stuff that are just...
Yeah.
Oh, those ones are... That makes my blood boil, but yeah. I'm glad I did something a little different today. Still really dark, but still a little different.
Yeah, more real.
Yeah,
like
it makes you really real. Yes, actually real, and it's still just as crazy. This case pissed me off, and it's crazy to me that I don't know if you're talking about you. Like a lot of people I know haven't heard of this case, which is crazy to me because I thought it was so popular. But even my mom didn't know. Once I told my mom, she was like, "The fuck," and I was like, "I know, right?"
Yeah.
But I guess it was because. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like, obviously a lot of TikToks have gone viral from the documentary, so I've seen a little bit of it, but obviously you don't go into depth when you're seeing those snippets.
Well, plus there wasn't like a trial, and I think maybe that's why, like with Casey Anthony, there was like a trial.
Right, exactly.
But they took a plea agreement, so there wasn't a trial for either of them, which was just crazy. But if you know about that Ring camera footage, that went viral, and that was just crazy. I want to give that boy a hug and a large meal and tell him everything's going to be all right because, oh my God, it was just heartbreaking. But yeah. All right, guys. Well, that was our religious trauma for the day. Hope you enjoyed it.
Our full religious episode.
Our full religious episode. Who wouldn't?
A double feature of Mormonism and Catholicism.
Double feature. That's the title of the episode.
A double feature.
Religion.
Hell yeah.
Religion. Double feature. Oh my God. Yeah. All right, guys. We will see you next time.
Yeah, and don't forget to like, share, subscribe, follow, comment.
All the fun stuff.
We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.